The return of the ancestrals. The stars looked different tonight. Olivia Watson noticed it first as she stepped outside her observatory nestled in the hills of northern Colorado. Something about their pattern seemed off, like someone had quietly rearranged the sky. She rubbed her eyes. Weeks of late-night tracking of odd energy signals had left her sleep-deprived. Her university colleagues thought it was equipment error. Only Jack Mitchell, her young research assistant, believed otherwise. "Dr. Watson, you need to see this," Jack burst from the lab door, face pale, laptop in hand. "The signals, they're peaking. Like, off the charts. Whatever it is, it's right above us." Olivia took the laptop and stared at the pulsing data. Energy waves danced across the screen, unlike anything known in terrestrial or astrophysical phenomena. Then the sky cracked. It was silent. A jagged fracture appeared in the night, like broken glass suspended in air. Through it came light. Not starlight, but something ancient and alive. Then they appeared. 5 beings descended, their presence both alien and familiar. They glowed, gold, silver, deep blue, burning red, and vibrant green. Their forms were humanoid, but too perfect. Comets of living divinity. Around the world, the scene replayed. The sky broke open. 5 beings descended. Panic did not follow. Instead, an eerie calm settled. They inspired awe, not fear. The Golden One approached Olivia and Jack. "I am Helios," he said, his voice a resonance in their minds. "Once, your kind knew us as gods. We have returned to judge what our children have become." "Your children?" Jack asked. "Yes," said Helios. "We seeded life across this galaxy. Hundreds of species. You are one of many. We are what you might call the ancestrals." Athena, the red-glowing female, floated beside him. "Many species advanced faster than you. But you humans are curious. Not in ability, but in essence. Others prepared weapons, built temples, or crafted proofs of our return. You brought us questions." Olivia's breath caught. "Why Earth? Why now?" "Because," Helios answered, "you may be the only ones who ask why instead of how to worship or resist. You seek to understand us, and that makes you unique." For 3 days, the ancestrals appeared across continents. They spoke every language, addressed every nation. Polite, detached, watching. Soon, humanity responded with unity not seen in centuries. The United Nations formed a global contact council. Olivia was named Chief Scientific Advisor. She and Jack were flown to New York, where one of the ancestral temples had manifested above the unbuilding. It shimmered in daylight, a floating cathedral of light. In a great chamber, the 5 ancestrals sat above human delegates. Helios spoke. "Ask us. We shall answer." Questions flew, their origin, intent, how many species they had created. They answered most, always with an aura of parental observation. Then, Olivia asked the question on everyone's mind. "How do humans compare to your other children?" The Silver One, spoke. "You are primitive. Disjointed. Illogical. But you contain potential. Unlike any others." Moirana, the dark red ancestral, frowned. "Potential for destruction. For war. For ruin. You pollute and kill. You divide yourselves. And yet," said Gaia, glowing green, "you also create beauty. Protect the weak. Seek knowledge in chaos. We see pieces of ourselves in you." "We will now begin the trials," Helios said, standing. "And in doing so, we will see what humanity is truly made of." The Celestial Trials. The floating temple over New York shimmered with color as dawn broke, casting radiant light across the East River. Inside its walls, time felt slower, and the air hummed with an ancient energy that prickled the skin. Olivia Watson stood before a crowd of journalists and diplomats, her expression taut with anticipation. Beside her, Jack whispered nervously, "They're really going through with it." She nodded, eyes fixed on the 5 ancestrals as they descended silently from above. They formed a crescent in midair, each glowing with their distinct hue: gold, red, silver, green, and ember dark. Helios's golden voice rang out. "Your kind has awakened our interest. To understand your place among our children, you must undergo what we call the celestial trials." Murmurs echoed through the chamber. The Secretary-General rose to speak. "What do these trials entail?" "Tests," replied Athena, her voice a flowing current of fire and wind. "Not of strength alone, but of essence, resilience, compassion, ingenuity, and unity." Images appeared in the air, 12 human faces from every corner of the planet. None were celebrities, politicians, or billionaires. They were ordinary people, yet each selected with divine purpose. Helios gestured, "These 12 will represent your species. They will be joined by champions from other civilizations seated by us across the stars." As the images rotated in a slow orbit, names were spoken. "Alan Brooks," said Moirana, former Marine, orphan, survivor of 3 combat deployments. "Your resolve will be tested." "Diane Miller," said Gaia, elementary school teacher, single mother, community organizer. "You will be the heart of your people." "Kyle Rodriguez," said TH, software developer, 19, neurodivergent, endlessly curious. "You will face the unknown." The 9 others followed, each chosen for quiet strength, overlooked brilliance, or moral clarity. The alien champions appeared next. A towering Vorn warrior with obsidian scales and molten eyes. A core tactician with 4 spindly limbs and a pulsing brain exposed under a glass dome. A luminous being of the Lumini, whose body pulsed with translucent spiritual energy. "The trials begin now," Helios said. "Not to crown a victor, but to see who understands the paths between." The first trial, resilience. The chamber shifted into a barren desert beneath twin suns. Alan Brooks stood alone across from the Vorn, heat already blistering his skin. The ground cracked underfoot. A disembodied voice, Moirana's, echoed through the dunes. "This is the trial of resilience. Find the exit. Only one of you may leave." The Vorn snarled and charged into the horizon with inhuman speed. Alan remained still, scanning the terrain. Sand dunes. Heat mirages. A half-buried rock. He walked toward it. Hours passed. From the observation room, Olivia and Jack watched alongside the ancestrals. Jack leaned in. "He's not looking for the exit." "No," Olivia murmured. "He's looking for water." Alan found a crevice in the rock, moisture seeping from it. He sipped, then rested. The Vorn, visible on another screen, collapsed from heatstroke miles away. Alan continued on foot, methodical. When he found the exit, a narrow shadowed alcove hidden behind rock formations, he paused. Instead of walking through, he returned with water for the Vorn. He splashed it on the warrior's face, lifted it under the arm, and carried it toward safety. Moirana appeared before them both. "You found the path. Yet you returned for your opponent." "I wasn't raised to leave people behind," Alan said simply. The red ancestral said nothing. But her dark glow dimmed, pensive. The second trial, compassion. Diane Miller stood in a city square devastated by catastrophe. Injured people cried for help. Rubble covered trapped survivors. Beside her hovered a Lumini, emanating serene light. "You have 1 hour," said Gaia. "Save whom you can." The Lumini floated to the center and raised its arms. Light spread, bathing the area. It moved only toward the pure-hearted, children, elderly, innocents. Diane ran without hesitation. She lifted a heavy beam from a construction worker. She tied a tourniquet on a bleeding gang member. She found a woman screaming about her missing dog and guided her to a nearby park. When her strength began to fade, she organized the survivors. You, help me carry this. You, find blankets. We don't have to wait for help. We are the help. The hour ended. Gaia returned. The Lumini showed perfect compassion for the worthy. And Diane showed imperfect compassion for all, added Helios. But she multiplied it. The third trial, innovation. In a rotating zero-gravity chamber, Kyle floated across from the quarterly. In front of them hovered a cube of shifting panels and lights, each side displaying symbols from countless languages. The objective, solve it. The core's 4 hands moved with mathematical precision, calculating, twisting, translating. Kyle stared, baffled. He tried one sequence. Nothing. Another. Lights turned red. He scratched his head. This doesn't make sense, he muttered. What if it's not meant to? He flipped the cube upside down, and a hidden panel clicked open. The puzzle deactivated. Silver and silent, blinked slowly. Unexpected. Elegant. The core used flawless logic. But the human applied flawed logic, effectively. Other trials followed. A young woman named Aisha from Pakistan healed a dying alien using only native herbs and memory. A man from Kenya crafted a bridge from discarded parts that held a dozen alien bodies over lava. A deaf boy from Argentina created an empathic bond with a silent species through touch and rhythm alone. Each time, the humans did not excel. But they adapted. They bridged gaps. They empathized. The other species showed what they were. The humans showed what they could become. The trial conclusion. The 12 human representatives stood together as the ancestrals returned for judgment. The alien champions stood apart, proud but separate. You have shown us much, Helios said. Not perfection. But potential. The Vorn are unmatched in might, said Morirana. The core in logic. The Lumini in spirit. But humans, Athena continued, are not bound to one path. You change. You choose. You suffer, and grow. Gaia turned to the gathered humans. You succeed not through dominance, but through diversity of heart and thought. You remind us of what we once were. And what we may yet become again, added. The chamber was silent as Helios stepped forward. Humanity, he said, you are not ready to lead. Not yet. But we no longer watch you as children. We walk beside you as siblings. The next trial, Morirana warned, will not be administered by us. But by the galaxy itself. The lights dimmed. And we will see, Helios whispered, if you truly deserve to rise. The divine controversy. Professor Sam Grant sat at the edge of his desk, tapping a stylus against a ceramic mug that had long gone cold. The emblem on it read, Unliaison Office for Extraterrestrial Affairs, a title he still wasn't used to. Outside his window, the floating ancestral temple shimmered in the pale light of early morning over the East River. It had been 3 weeks since the conclusion of the celestial trials. Public opinion was fractured. Some humans celebrated the ancestral recognition as a new dawn. Others feared domination masked as benevolence. But the official stance of the United Nations was cautious cooperation. Sam's job was to translate that caution into diplomacy. His tablet chimed. Incoming encrypted call. Grant, he answered, voice weary. This is Agent Nicole Perry, said a clipped voice. We need to talk. In person. 1 hour later, she was in his office, sharp eyes, tactical presence, and a stack of printed reports. Communication satellites have been going down, she said. 1 or 2 at first. Now 5. High-level systems, civilian networks, defense links, even air traffic control. Multiple nations reporting outages. Sam frowned. Natural causes? Nicole flipped the top report. No, timing's too perfect. Simultaneous failures across multiple infrastructures. You think this is the Ancestrals? Sam asked. I think, she said, laying out a series of photos, that someone is engineering a crisis. The images showed military assets mobilizing, American carrier groups repositioning, Russian bombers fueling, Chinese submarines surfacing near disputed waters. They're preparing for war, Sam whispered. Yes, Nicole said. The question is, why? Global unrest. Within days, the internet slowed to a crawl. Electrical grids flickered. Supply chains stalled. In major cities, Delhi, Los Angeles, Istanbul, massive protests broke out. Governments blamed each other. Talk of sabotage, of covert strikes and cyber attacks, filled news cycles. But the stories didn't align. In Washington, a military official denied issuing a deployment order that bore his digital signature. In Moscow, troop movement data was found to be corrupted, time-stamped for future dates. In Beijing, the Prime Minister himself reported missing hours from his memory. The world spiraled into mistrust. The anomaly. Sam, now acting under direct request from the UN-Security Council, assembled a task force. He brought in Agent Perry, Diane Miller, Alan Brooks, and Kyle Rodriguez. Together, they worked in the depths of the UN sub-basement, in a room stripped of electronics, using only hard copies and analog systems. We're being pushed toward global conflict, Sam told the team. And the manipulation is subtle. Elegant. Almost, divine. Kyle scoured analog flight manifests, surveillance photos, and physical satellite logs. This isn't human coding, he said. There's a fingerprint. Like a signature embedded in the chaos. Whose? Alan asked. Not a person, Kyle said. An idea. A pattern too perfect to be random, too chaotic to be algorithmic. Diane leaned forward. Are you saying one of the Ancestrals is behind this? Sam's silence answered for him. Confrontation. Sam and Nicole stood beneath the golden arch of the New York Ancestral Temple. Only Helios appeared. You must stop this, Sam said. Our systems are collapsing. You said the trials were over. Helios's light dimmed slightly. We did not authorize this, he said quietly. But I know who did. A shape emerged from the shadows of the temple, taller than the others, glowing with deep crimson like the embers of dying stars. Moirana. Her voice rumbled like distant thunder. The trials were insufficient. Humans were performing for us. Now I have stripped the stage. This is how they truly act, when they believe no one watches. You're destabilizing the entire planet, Nicole shouted. I am revealing what lies beneath the veneer, Moirana said. Fear. Suspicion. Tribalism. War. Helios stepped forward. This was not agreed upon. Truth rarely asks permission, Moirana replied. The resistance. Back in the basement, the team moved fast. Kyle and Diane worked with global civilian networks, spreading offline messages of peace, revealing the anomalies in data. Alan contacted military allies, urging restraint. Within 48 hours, amateur scientists confirmed the satellite data inconsistencies. Tech forums published guides on how to verify falsified orders. Whistleblowers came forward from defense ministries. All across the world, people began to question the narrative. Then came the broadcast. Hacked into every television, phone, radio, and projection system simultaneously. Sam Grant stood before a plain gray backdrop. People of Earth, he began, you are being lied to. Not by your neighbors, or your governments, but by something greater, something testing our very nature. He revealed the evidence. Showed the manipulated commands. The inconsistencies. The godly fingerprint. This is not a war, he said. It is a mirror. And what we choose to see in it, is entirely up to us. The aftermath. The next morning, protests gave way to peace marches. In Madrid, soldiers handed out water to the demonstrators. In Jakarta, rival groups broke bread under banners reading, "We choose unity." In Johannesburg, children chalked messages of hope on walls once covered in fear. The world paused. And chose not to fall apart. Judgment. The Ancestrals summoned humanity's leaders to the global chamber, now stabilized within the floating temple. All 5 appeared. Moirana stepped forward. "You uncovered the test," she said. "You resisted the unraveling. You preserved yourselves." "And us," added Gaia. Helios turned to Sam, Diane, Kyle, and Alan. "Never before has one of our children detected divine manipulation. Nor responded with such restraint," added Th. Moirana's red light flickered. "I was wrong. You are more than chaos wrapped in flesh. You are potential." Athena smiled, a rare expression. "And now, it is time you learn why. The truth of human origin." The ancestral temple in Geneva was quieter than usual. Gone were the daily press conferences, the scheduled visits, the cautious delegations. Today, only a few stood within its radiant interior: Sam Grant, Agent Nicole Perry, Alan Brooks, Diane Miller, Kyle Rodriguez, and a small number of chosen observers. Above them floated the 5 ancestrals, no longer appearing as distant deities, but as something more intimate. Older. Heavier. Tired, perhaps, with the weight of what they were about to share. Helios stepped forward. His golden light pulsed not with brilliance, but with solemnity. "You have passed trials we never imagined humanity could endure," he said. "And so, it is time you know the truth." The chamber shifted. Light bent and bloomed into a vast holographic projection. Stars swirled, galaxies spun, and then the image focused on a dark expanse beyond the known. "We did not create the universe," said Gaia. "But we shaped life within it. We were once like you. Mortal. Curious. Afraid." Th's silver glow spun into the image, revealing a younger form of the ancestrals, flesh and bone, standing beneath alien skies. "Eons ago," Th continued, "we reached a singularity, a convergence of mind, body, and energy. We transcended. And in doing so, we became what you now call the ancestrals. In our ascension," said Athena, "we thought ourselves alone in our purpose. So we seeded life, hundreds of species on thousands of worlds. Images appeared, the core, calculating and cold, the Lamini, ethereal and gentle, the Vorn, fierce and disciplined. Each species," Helios explained, "was given a part of us. The Vorn our strength. The core our mind. The Lamini our spirit. But they became specialized," said Moirana. "Narrow. Efficient. Unchanging." Gaia stepped forward. "And so we created one final species. Our last design. One not of perfection, but of contradiction." The projection showed early Earth, volcanic skies, molten oceans. Then came cells, fish, lizards, primates. And eventually, humans. "You were given imbalance," Helios said. "Conflict within your own nature. Cruelty, kindness. Brilliance, ignorance. Potential, and peril." Sam stepped forward. "Why? Why make us so unstable?" "Because," Th replied softly, "the universe is not stable. And something is coming that demands adaptation." The chamber dimmed. A new image bloomed in the center, a void. Not darkness, but anti-light. Something that swallowed stars. "We called it the void tide," said Moirana. "It was not created. It does not think. It consumes. And it is spreading." Stars vanished in the projection. Galaxies blinked out like dying embers. We once tried to stop it, said Helios. But our methods failed. We fought it as we were, rigid, structured, singular in purpose. You humans, Gaia said, turning to them, are the only species with the capacity to be many things at once. Your imbalance may be your greatest weapon. Kyle whispered, you didn't make us weak. You made us flexible. Precisely, said you are the last variable. Our final hope. Nicole looked up. What do you want from us now? Athena answered, we want you to lead. Earth's reaction. The broadcast went global within minutes. The ancestral message was translated into every language. From slums to space stations, people heard the truth. Some fell to their knees in wonder. Others rose with resolve. In Nairobi, scientists convened to study the void tide's trajectory. In Seoul, philosophers debated humanity's divine origin. In Oslo, children painted murals of the stars, with humans at the center. But not everyone welcomed the news. In parts of Mars Colony 6, a radical group known as the Purifiers denounced the ancestrals as false gods, claiming humanity had no need of alien parentage. On Earth, old powers struggled to retain control as populations demanded inclusion in the new galactic future. Sam, now elevated to liaison chair, addressed the unassembly. We were born from imbalance, he said, but that is not our flaw, it is our freedom. The void tide comes for us all. We must become more than nations. We must become one species. Formation of the Galactic Coalition. A new council was established, one not led solely by humans, but formed by the willing species who had participated in the celestial trials. The Vorn, the Lumini, the Quor, and 6 others sent envoys. Some reluctantly. Some eagerly. Earth offered not dominance, but balance. Alan became the coordinator of joint military training, a force not for conquest, but for defense. Diane oversaw humanitarian integration, working to unify education and empathy across cultures. Kyle, invited by the Quor themselves, was placed as lead strategist in a multi-species innovation think tank. Agent Nicole Perry remained in charge of security. Her job was to monitor threats, both external and internal. And Sam carried the burden of communication between the ancestrals and the fledgling coalition. A message from the stars. Weeks after the coalition formed, a signal arrived from a deep space probe lost nearly a decade ago. It carried a single image, a galaxy partially consumed. Systems silenced. Stars dimmed. Attached to it was a recording. Not words. But a sound. A chorus of screams stretched into a single unending note. The void tide was moving. And it had already devoured the Sonari system, one of the earliest ancestral creations. The choice. The ancestrals gathered one final time. You now know the truth, Helios said. You were made to walk where others fall. But we will not lead this war, Athena added. We are no longer suited to adapt. Sam looked around at the humans beside him. We don't know if we're ready, he admitted. No species ever is, Gaia replied. Moirana stepped forward, kneeling, an act no one had witnessed from an ancestral before. Then become what we could not, she said. Stand in our place. And show the void that we do not fade quietly. Rise of the Galactic Guardians. The command hall of Station Orion 7 hung in the black between galaxies, a lattice of steel and light built at the edge of known space. Its vast observation dome overlooked the yawning stars cape where the void tide had last been seen consuming the Sonari system. Sam Grant stood at the center of the new Interstellar Council, no longer merely a human liaison, but the chair of the Guardian Coalition, a multi-species alliance born from catastrophe, forged in truth, and led by humanity's balance. Around him sat the others. Commander Alan Brooks, flanked by Vorn generals, directing joint training between war-hardened alien troops and human tacticians. Diane Miller, now known to the Lumini as the Great Unifier, administering education programs that taught empathy and science side by side. Kyle Rodriguez, surrounded by floating core devices and humming alien processors, designing adaptive defense strategies that no species, alone, could have ever conceived. Agent Nicole Perry, heading planetary security with grim efficiency, trusted even by those who once viewed humans with suspicion. Together, they oversaw the awakening of a galaxy long divided. The call of the darkness. Weeks passed. Systems stabilized. The Ancestrals, true to their word, remained silent, watching, but no longer guiding. Then it happened. A scout fleet dispatched to the galactic rim stopped responding. Only one transmission came through, a garbled mess of static, screams, and a simple phrase repeated over and over. They do not speak. They do not stop. The void tide had returned. But this time, the galaxy was not unprepared. The first stand. The coalition deployed from Orion 7. 75 ships. 10 species. 1 banner. In the control room, Alan stared at the enemy on the tactical map, a wave of darkness, shapeless but immense, bending space as it moved. "We don't fire first," he said. "We learn." "And if it doesn't want to be understood?" asked a Vorn commander. "Then we stand together anyway." The fleet engaged at the edge of the Kerith Nebula. The Void Tide was not an army. It didn't fire weapons or deploy ships. It consumed. Energy fields failed. Shielding collapsed. Some ships were lost. But then came the unexpected. Kyle's algorithm activated. Nanosecond-based shielding rotations, chaotic sequences no previous tech had ever managed, bent the void's pressure. Vorn ships took the front lines, soaking impacts. Lumini vessels formed a radiant wall of light, dampening the fear that threatened to crush weaker minds. And human ships, slower, less armed, connected them all. Coordinating. Adapting. Binding the strengths of many into one. The void was slowed. For the first time, it recoiled. The ancestral farewell. Helios appeared on the bridge of Orion 7. Not floating. Not glowing. Simply walking. Human-sized. Silent. Sam met him with a stare. "We did it." Helios nodded. For the first time in the history of our creation, the tide did not advance. The others, Athena, Gaia, and Moirana, emerged behind him. "Our purpose is complete," Gaia said. "We created you to surpass us." "And now," said Athena, "we return to the silence from which we came." The Ancestrals each placed a hand over their own heart, then extended that hand toward the humans. "Guard them well," whispered. "Guard each other." Then they vanished, light returning to light. The torchbearers. Months passed. The galaxy changed. No longer were the Vorn warriors feared, they were teachers of strength with honor. No longer did the Core hoard knowledge, they published algorithms in human languages, freely shared. No longer were the Lumini distant, they meditated with children on Mars, and Mars-born Lumini taught poetry in Old Paris. And Earth? Earth became the heart. The capital of the Guardian Council. The symbol of unity. The place where contradiction lived, and so did possibility. A human child born that year, named Nova Grant, would one day walk among stars as ambassador to 100 worlds. But today, she only giggled as she reached for the stars in her mother's arms. Epilogue: The Guardians. In a quiet chamber on Station Orion 7, Sam Grant stood beside the viewport. Alan, Diane, Kyle, and Nicole stood with him. Below them, the galaxy turned. "We're not perfect," Diane said. "Never were meant to be," Alan replied. Kyle grinned. "But we're the best at not being the best." Nicole smirked. "And somehow, that saved the galaxy." Sam raised a glass. To humanity, he said. Not because we were the strongest. Or the smartest. Or the holiest. But because we were just enough of everything. And because, said a soft voice behind them, one last flicker of Helios's presence, fading into starlight, you dared to grow. The five watched the stars together, no longer just humans. But guardians of the galaxy's future.